Yeah, now let's talk about gold.
The fact that most of Colorado's history obviously comes from that. I would say most of Colorado's colonized history comes from the gold mining and everything surrounding it. And also, as a child, the things that we did that now looking back on it, Oregon Trail, what a game. We loved it. We loved it.
I have that as a board game. They tried to make it as a board game recently, and I was like, well, just for nostalgia purposes, I'm buying this. It's not the same.
Dysentery.
Yeah.
But you just,
or a snake bite.
Yeah, and you
fair.
This is it. This is the whole thing. This is it.
I mean, speaking of snake bites, I have a gold story that involves snakes.
Okay. I was like, how is she transitioning this right now?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
That was good, right?
Yeah, it's
I
like,
tried that really
speaking of flowers.
Speaking of things, so this is kind of a cool story, and it kind of ties into the gold mining because the story revolves around gold. So this is the story. The story is it takes place near the Spanish Peaks, where the snakes are so thick you'd have to parade around them on stilts. So just get that visual.
Nope.
Okay.
I don't like it.
The vile vipers haunt a cursed rock formation resembling a stone doll.
I don't know.
Okay. So the story, or the legend, I should say, the legend tells that when the Spanish mined from their namesake peaks, they discovered more gold than they could possibly cart back to Santa Fe. So they buried the surplus treasure under La Muñeca. Okay, so this means the doll, and the Arapaho Indians knew of the secret stash, but feared going near the doll because it was cursed by legions of vicious vipers. Only the daughter of the great chief knew the exact location of this buried bounty because her late husband was a Spanish captain who hid it there. But it wasn't until the princess was on her deathbed that she told her 3 grown sons the dark secrets of the doll. With her dying breath, she forbade them to retrieve the hidden riches. The hidden riches reminding them of the evil curse. Come to find out, their father was attacked and killed by the legions of slithering serpents while burying the bags of gold under the stone demon. The eldest son took after his Spanish father and didn't believe in the superstitious nonsense. So basically, he hid this treasure thinking it would be fine, like he didn't think anything would happen. He was killed by these snakes. The oldest son also didn't believe in this superstition. So under the cloak of the dark moon, the brave son crept to the menacing stone doll. With visions of riches dancing in his head, he reached into the dark hole and felt his salvation, just as his mother had promised. But as the warrior pulled a bag towards the surface, a hungry rattler lunged from its nest and bit off his nose.
Oh.
The stone giant rumbled with laughter, releasing the hundreds of vicious vipers. The next morning, the deceitful brother the other brother grew concerned, and sadly, they found the rebel lying in the shadow of the doll, staring into the heavens, but not seeing a thing. The dead man's eyes were frozen open with the look of absolute terror, and his swollen body looked like a human pincushion.
Oh.
Even to this day, the cursed treasure of La Muñeca is waiting to be found, but nobody wants to go hunting, for it is because of this deadly curse.
That's a really awesome story, actually.
That's a good story.
That's a really good one. I've never heard that before, but
no. And this is, so they have like a little image of like the vipers and the stone.
Anything with snakes, I'm out.
And I'm like, it's just,
first of all, there's your Spanish influence, right?
Uh-huh.
It says right there, there's our Spanish influence bringing those chupacabras. But there's a doll, to me, is quite possibly the creepiest thing that there is.
Yes, and to have this like rock formation that looks like a doll.
That's not coincidence.
But then, like, where do the vipers come from?
Well, don't they say like a pit of vipers or like a den of vipers is usually a bad omen for...
It reminded me of Vikings, Ragnar. Well, he died in a pit of vipers.
I don't.
Or snakes. I don't know. I can't say
Or like
vipers,
Indiana Jones. The only thing he's afraid of is snakes. So, just saying.
Well, the stories
snakes,
like
serpents,
that.
I mean, devil. Like, I can see it. It's evil.
Totally. And
It's
the whole
evil.
concept of it being accursed, like to protect this treasure that wasn't really theirs to take to begin with. And that's like the whole thing.
I would totally try for that treasure these days. I would go for it.
You know, I would risk the biscuit.
Yeah.
I'd really risk the
would.
biscuit at this point.
But also, like the kid that goes to find it and he sticks his hand in, he feels it. Like, I would assume he feels the bag. And then.
But it's gold, right? So maybe it's like, it's not bars yet. It's probably just hunks. Hunks.
Big hunks of gold.
When I envision treasure, I want treasure to be in a chest. You know? If we're going to bury
Coin
treasure,
form?
I just, I want jewels. I want a chest.
Like the Goonies treasure.
100%.
On that ship.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Gold isn't always like that here. I actually learned about 2 different types of gold that they found, and I actually had to look it up because one was called lode, like Lode. And it was more like a vein. Veins of gold embedded in rock.
What?
That's really pretty. And then the other kind is the chunky kind. The hunks of gold.
The little broken up pieces of
There
gold.
was a term.
You don't like hunks of gold?
Placer deposits. So probably.
Teeny tiny pieces of gold.
I mean, beyond that, just talking about now these mines are empty, right? They're
No.
bad things are in there.
Well, I mean, it's the dark.
Well, we don't even know how far they go, right?
That's the thing. That's the thing. Do they connect? Where do they go? Where do they end up?
Because here's the other thing that I was thinking about when we were like reading these stories is we're assuming that these, settlers came in and started mining, but who's to say that there weren't already mines, right? From the people who were here before the settlers
Like a
came.
system through the caves.
Exactly, because that makes sense, right? Like people who know the land are going to make these tunnels and like caves that have hidden whatever, like the hills have eyes creepiness, like
I could segue with that.
Please do.
No, because I've never seen that movie and I never will. So
I'll be honest with you.
you don't want to.
I don't want to.
I am not. I've only seen a few movies in my lifetime that scare me. I'm just like not a scary movie person. I enjoy them. I love watching them, but they do not scare me. That one, straight up, terrified.
Yeah.
Terrified.
That movie specifically gives you like this after you're done watching it.
No.
You feel like you're like, what did I just watch?
Yeah, I don't want that.
It's heavy, and then like the second one, the opening scene, you're just like, what am I?
No, there's just it's kind of like a Rob Zombie thing that I'm like, no thanks.
Oh, it's
I'm good. Yeah,
for sure.
Tried.
It's gross.
Okay, give it to us.
Lost my train of thought. What was it?
Tunnels.
Spooky tunnels.
Hills Have Eyes. Hills Have Eyes.
Oh, okay. Well, it kind of goes back to the ghost town, abandoned town thing.
Yeah,
we were talking about the St. Elmo, the
Yes.
ghost town,
Yes.
because that was the only one that had a story that like the family, the Stark family,
Interesting.
Scott, gave me Hills Have Eyes vibes. Like, and I don't know that movie, but I know plenty about that movie that I could equate, that I just could picture. Just that, abandoned, those like abandoned buildings, and just like, like you see what are those things blowing through?
The tumbleweeds.
The tumbleweeds blowing through, and you just see like the one kid standing there just staring, like holding a doll.
Yeah.
And you're just like, why are you here?
What's happening?
But St. Elmo was not originally named St. Elmo. It was really originally called Forest City, and they changed the name to St. Elmo in order for the town not to be confused with other settlements of the same name. But this is now Colorado's best preserved ghost town. Again, oxymoronic here. But it also had the most successful mine in the area. It was called Mary Murphy Mine.
Interesting.
$60 million worth of gold.
Okay.
And that was what time frame, right?
It ran until 1922.
Holy
Holy
moly.
moly.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yep. So this recovered a staggering $60 million worth of gold while it was in operation and ran right up until the railroad was abandoned.
Wow.
And yeah, can you imagine having that much money back then? Your family's still living off that
I was
money.
just going to say, that's like Vanderbilt money, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the money that's still existing, and those people are still very, very rich.
Yeah.
And but that's why these places all emptied out, right? And you know, I see the difference between a ghost town and an abandoned town, right? An abandoned town is just empty, right? Ghost town, there's got to be some sort of like
spooky element.
Exactly, well worded. And I don't know, I kind of see it both being the same thing a little bit.
Yeah.
But all these people, they left, right? Because there was nothing left to mine. They abandoned the railroad, and they even called it like a mass exodus of this area, which also just makes me sad if we think back to the fact that you caused a mass exodus to come here.
Exactly.
You know?
And then you don't even stay because you're not.
You've sucked. You've been a chupacabra and sucked the life out of this area, and now you're like, okay, bye.
That seems to be a
goat sucker.
A theme throughout these towns. Any towns that are kind of considered ghost towns, it seems to be the same type of, they come to this town, they're hoping to find gold, they're starting their families, and then very quickly there is no gold. Families start to leave, and then the town is empty.
Well, this family was probably one of the only ones that we could say was the exception, because they just legit did not want to leave. They really tried in vain to keep this town going, to try and reopen the mines, to keep tourism kind of coming in, to make money, encourage visitors, but it just never really popped off for them anyway. So the patriarch of this family, his name was Anton Stark. They called him Tony.
Tony Stark?
Tony Stark.
That's hilarious.
Wait, isn't that Iron Man?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about Iron Man.
And his son, and he had a son named Roy. His wife is Anna, and he had a daughter named Annabelle.
Okay. And she became a doll.
So they leased these empty cabins to tourists, continued to run the general store, blah, blah, blah. But of course, property taxes start going up. Right? Thank you. Taxes, right? And it just became too much. So they were the only ones. There were 7 people listed on the census for this town, and it was just this town's family by 1930. And then the number depleted in 1934 because Roy passed away, as did the mother. So now we're down to 5.
Just down to 5.
Now we're down to 5, yeah. So the few remaining residents eventually left too, leaving only Tony and Annabelle to live in the dead town completely alone. There's no plumbing. There's no electricity. They have this completely eccentric lifestyle, allegedly very rarely bathing, changing clothes. How would they know that? I don't know. Right. But the hotel that they owned was left to rot, right? There's just trash everywhere. So obviously tourists weren't even coming in anywhere either. But it was said that Annabelle was said to roam the empty streets with a loaded rifle hung over her shoulder.
Okay, I've seen that episode of The Walking Dead. Yeah.
People said it smelled horrible and was full of outdated food and withering items. Also in the general store, that's kind of funny. I was wondering where they were stocking up from.
Yeah.
And then eventually they just go off the record sometime in the late 1940s, assumingly dying, and being buried in the ghost town that they spent their lives in, but nobody knows.
Well, if you're going to haunt somewhere, I would be pissed if I'd be like, we tried for years and now it's a tourist attraction? Amen. Are you kidding me? I will haunt the shit out of you.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
But I read this and I would totally agree with this. I feel like I would be a victim of it, though, that if you ever go through a ghost town or an abandoned town, whatever you want to define it as, don't take anything.
Yeah.
100%, right?
It's like houses. It's like anything that's been abandoned. No.
So I'm picturing now you have people that are coming through all the time, right? But what is it that people are looking for? Because if I'm hearing ghost town, I'm going with
ghosts
with an incentive.
There's some kind of haunting.
It's paranormal.
Yes.
Some kind of spirit.
And that's what I was saying to you guys that I was getting so disappointed about when I was looking up ghost towns.
Yeah.
And it was more, to me, touristy kind of things, with cool hiking trails and really awesome spots that you could, do all the outdoorsy wilderness, which I'm totally down for. I really am. I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's not what's going to bring me to a ghost town.
Fair.
So I'm picturing like Chernobyl status. I'm going through these abandoned rooms and things, and there's something creepy.
And I think you kind of get that vibe, right? There's like a story there. So like you're looking through the history of this family. Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's...
Now this family, if it had this general store, I would be haunting it too, because they're probably buried underneath it.
Or did
also,
they just,
who buried them?
Die in the house.
Who buried the last guy?
Yeah.
Who buried the last guy?
And I would also assume, okay, so this is like, these are in the mountains, these little towns, right? Mm-hmm. So like animals just coming in and eating whatever is left.
Circle of life.
Like that's kind of part of,
well,
I would feel like that happened a lot.
Sure.
Like that would be a normal part of life is if you're in like a cabin somewhere and everyone has passed, your bodies are just sitting there.
Well,
I mean, I would think that at a certain point, the animals would find you.
Yes, that's
or
true.
you just decompose, and that's it. That's that.
I guess it
delicious.
would depend.
Really good soil.
Delicious.
But her name was Annabelle. It's just great.
That's so.
I mean,
creepy.
that's
unfortunate.
But St. Elmo was really the only town that I even read anything about that had the ghost town vibe to it.
Same.
So I found one other town that had been categorized as a ghost town. Again, no ghost, so to speak.
In the world.
But I found it kind of interesting. It's super short, so I'm just going to tell you about it really quick. So this is, this little town is called Lancer City, and it's called the town that vanished. And this is in the 1900s, the early 1900s. And it was kind of born out of the shadow of Pikes Peak. They were really hopeful that it would also become like a really big gold mining town, and it would rival Cripple Creek, which was another town. But unfortunately,
look at the map.
Can you find it?
Yes, Pikes Peak.
Here.
Pikes Peak is right here, and here's Cripple Creek.
Yeah. So this
and St. Elmo was about in this area. So I mean, they're
all
pretty
there.
close. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like obviously these settlers came thinking like, oh, we'll be able to come into wealth like all these other little towns right around us. But that was not the case. The mines were barren. And so very quickly, one by one, the families left the town because it was obviously like, what are they there for? But what's interesting is the town in 1935 became a town. It said that the town met a watery grave when the South Catamount Reservoir flooded the land, burying its last remnants. So some say on nights, if you like are hiking in that area, you can hear ghostly whispers beneath the water, and that they say like miners that never left the town because they're assuming everyone left the town. Here's your like tourist trappy kind of thing, that they're still searching for gold that never was, and that people have claimed to see flickering lights under the lake because it's a lake now. It's no longer a town. And they call it the Lancer City that refuses to be forgotten, a town lost to time. And I was like, oh, I just liked that because it's one of those things that if you go there and you hike that area, like I wonder if you're able to kind of, if you get that vibe in that. I don't know. I mean, it's totally just, there's no ghost stories. There's nothing happened in the town other than the fact that like they came, they couldn't find, mines. The mines were barren. And then they were like, you know what, let's go back to Pikes Peak. I just thought it was cool. And then the fact that the water from the reservoir completely flooded the town, creating a lake. So
I wonder what's under there.
There's.
That's
I was just
the
gonna
thing,
say,
right?
It's like the Atlantis towns, right? Where these
they just
bodies
swallowed.
of water just swallow. Where we live up in the Catskills, we have the Neversink, the town of Neversink. The original town of Neversink is in the water, under where the town of Neversink is now.
Yeah.
And the lake that I live on had a casino that is just underwater in the lake.
There.
Yeah, just in the lake.
Wow.
Okay, so I have a creepy cannibal story.
I'm excited.
That I'm just going to tie into The Hills Have Eyes before Dina tells me the story that I've been waiting for.
What?
The Axeman.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
It's a beautiful way to wrap up.
It is, yeah.
And then I'm going to tell us about the curse of, I'm going to finish us off with the curse of Colorado. But, so this is, I'm very interested. I already know what you're going to think, but I'm interested in what you think. So they called this gentleman, apparently no one calls him by his full name. They just call him the Colorado Cannibal, but his name was Alfred Packer. And
sounds like a computer.
he's not,
He's scary. I don't like his hair.
I don't like his hair. Yeah.
he's having troubles. Okay, so he was a guide, right? So these people would come, they would want to hike the mountains, and he would take them out into the mountains. And apparently he just he's from Pennsylvania. He worked in the mines. He just, was trying to find his thing. We're all trying to find our thing. And our boy Alfred, he took these 5 young frontiersmen up to the mountains. And this was in 1974 in, you guessed it, the San Juan Mountains. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, it was 6 people. The story is so disgusting.
I'm excited.
It's gross. So what happened was he took everyone up there. He was 31 at the time, and it was freezing. It was snowing. It is icy terrain. And, this is not car time, mm-hmm. You're walking. These people, that's why they're there. It's almost like when you pay to, go up to Machu Picchu, right? You pay this guide and he takes you, and it's supposed to be for safety. So he just came back by himself 2 months after he started the journey without the other 5 dudes. And he said, listen, I was abandoned by my companions. I don't know where they are. I have no idea what happened to them. But obviously they're like, that's not adding up. You're supposed to be taking them. Why would they abandon you? They don't know what the hell they're doing. They paid you to do this. So he eventually has to tell the authorities, all right, this is what happened. So one by one, these men died from hunger and exposure to the harsh elements. And since they were all starving, they each took turns eating the fallen person. So a dude would die from starvation.
Sounds like the
delicious.
That movie.
Yeah, the movie.
Well, the true story of the rugby players.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And he just kept eating people until he was the last person. He survived. But
he didn't want to admit it.
He didn't want to admit it.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, he does admit to the cannibalism, but he says they kind of all partook until, he was the last man standing. And he, chalks it up to the fact that, I'm the outdoorsman. Of course I'm the last man standing. Obviously that adds up.
Right.
I'm the one that can survive out there. So he, the rumors are circulating. How is this possible? The bodies of the other 5 guys are not discovered right away. They would be there, right? You would be able to find them. So a few months later, this gentleman, our boy, Alfred, gets in a little bit of trouble because they do find the bodies. And there's blunt trauma to the back of one of their heads. 2 of the other gentlemen have defense wounds along their arms, as if they were trying to protect themselves, as well as blunt trauma. And, our boy Alfred is like, no, they just died from starvation. Why would they have these defense wounds then? And technically, he could not be tried for cannibalism, which is why he admitted to it, because it is technically not a crime. And it's not a federal crime, I should say. And
there's a tip, guys.
Well, disgusting. Eventually, what happens is they're like, my dude, we've got the evidence now. You're going to have to fess up. So he does get sentenced. He is convicted of the murders of these gentlemen in a Lake County court at the tail end of 74. Only for the murder, not for the cannibalism. And before he could be sentenced, our boy Packer was like, I'm out. He escaped custody. He went on the lam for the next 9 years. When he was recaptured in 1883 and sentenced to death, he was spared on a very tiny little technicality because when he was originally convicted, Colorado was still a territory and it did not become a state until 1876. So his 1883 death sentence was founded on state law and was thus overturned by the Colorado Supreme Court in 1885.
Wow.
Yep. So he was found guilty of manslaughter the following year, and he was sentenced to 40 years in the state penitentiary. In 1901, his name returned to the headlines when the Denver Post published a series of editorials questioning his guilt. Did he really kill these people? Was he really just up there? And it was kind of like that, the rugby team, right?
Sounds like he killed him.
Well, that's what I think. But the articles then prompted enough publicity that the then governor, Charles S. Thomas, granted our boy parolement after serving less than half of his sentence. So he led a quiet life in Littleton where he handcrafted, wait for this fucking creep show, dollhouses.
I was just
of
saying
all
something,
the things.
something
Had
to
to
do
be.
with dolls.
Had to be.
He would tell tales of the Wild West and maintained his innocence until he died in 1907. But there is, you know, I want to know what you guys think about this, but this has become like a very, you know, a little folklore, the tale that people tell. But it's gotten a little gross. Like there was a movie that was made about it. There's a cookbook that was made. I'm not kidding.
What?
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. And there's even a spot where the bodies were found. It is called Cannibal Plateau. And here's a picture of two people in 1942 at the gravesite of the 5 dead prospecting companions outside of Lake City, Colorado.
Dear Lord.
It's disgusting.
I'm sorry.
And I guess there's an investigation into in the 1990s that followed the discovery of his pistol, which he had on him because in 1989, when the bodies of the 5 men were exhumed and re-examined using more modern forensic technology, I'm guessing because this has been such like a...
And also, like, their families are probably like,
Yeah.
what happened? This guy is not innocent.
They changed it back to homicide. I mean, obviously,
He's dead.
posthumously, he's dead. But, yeah.
So what was there a bullet wound?
They haven't
Or
said
you know
that.
what? Blunt force trauma. Maybe he just used the gun.
Yeah. And it really says that there's another deep dive on the case in 2010s by a true crime historian that left many to believe that he really did murder all 5 men. But this is so gross. Stories about Packer's life post-prison have developed their own legs, like the fact that he became a vegetarian later in life because he could no longer stand the taste of meat.
Love that for him.
I mean,
And,
after you eat human, I guess.
There's no
Yeah,
going back.
and if you want to, you can see his mummified head in the Ripley's Believe It or Not collection.
Great.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That is not going to be on my to-do list.
No, that's weird.
No.
That's weird.
I think that was a thing back then, because
Mummified heads?
stuff about saving the heads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that actually is how my Axeman story ends.
Oh my God. Okay, go.
I don't even understand how these two things.
This is going so swimmingly,
I
guys. It's
wonder
like we
if,
planned it.
like the lore of this story
Was Alfred Packman
was
the Axeman?
like
No.
came from.
No.
No.
No,
Oh,
it couldn't
I'm
have been. Couldn't have been.
excited.
What year was that? You were saying
1907.
yeah,
I think
this
he
is
died.
like
This is like yesterday.
Yeah, this is like right now.
like 1863.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is pre.
This is like before the cannibal guy, so
Maybe he. No,
Well, he
because
took them
it's,
on their expedition in.
maybe it's just the way the law enforcement does
Also-
things.
Not
like
great.
like all of the places we tell stories about, there just seems to be a certain level of evil lurking.
something.
Well, do you ever, like with places like this, you've heard those stories back in the day, right? Like Dead Man's Canyon, right?
Yeah.
No, that there really is a Dead Man's Canyon in Colorado.
There is?
There's like a real place, yeah, and it was renamed that, and it coincides with this phantom Axeman, which I was lured, I should say, to this story because we never mentioned the Axeman in Louisiana.
No.
But there was one down there, and he, murdered his victims with an axe. This one is ironically about a phantom who was killed by an axe.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
So,
okay.
but we've mentioned this like Spanish kind of influence in the area, but also with Colorado bordering New Mexico and all the things down there, there was this really notorious gang called the Espinosa Gang.
Ooh.
I don't know if you've heard of them, but they were originally, I believe, from further down, like in Mexico. They had like ties back to the Mexican War. And so the leader of this gang, his name was Juan Espinosa, believed he was some kind of Mexican, like, vigilante, kind of like avenging angel, let's say, on this like
Yes.
holy mission to kill every American that crossed his path.
Great.
I almost
Yes.
don't blame him, honestly.
Fair.
Well, you're going to love this next part because he especially hated older white men.
Get him, son.
Because he blamed them in the previous generations for the Mexican War. So he moves to Pikes Peak. He moves to Pikes Peak with the gang.
Yeah.
You know, the troops all go there.
Hot spot.
Yeah. And I think that's why we wind up hearing all of these tales from this area because it just seems to be so many crisscrossing,
Yep.
wildly crazy things. And like now I'm picturing like guns and robbers, right? Like old school cowboy desperados kind of thing now. But you got to remember too, like this is also the time of like the Civil War.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what is happening in this country at this time? There's so many different things happening right now. So they moved the gang over there to Pikes Peak in 1863, get their first victim, poor 68-year-old carpenter dude, found with like a bullet-ridden heart, right?
Yeah.
And a note that was posted on this tree nearby, written in blood, of course.
Of course.
It's always written in blood.
How else would you write a note?
No one has a pen.
No one has a pen, yeah. Declaring Mexico's independence and the gang's devotion to the Virgin Mary because that was their thing. You know.
See.
This is where it gets so good because they flee this area and they go to a place called the Sawmill Gulch.
Gulch. That's a fun one.
That is a fun
Yes, I mean, the story just writes itself.
Yeah, this is good.
So it's this remote area, perfect for a hideout. Has these towering cliffs, right? Nice like bird's eye view, all these caves. Like a lot of desperados would hide here, right? Banditos, whatever we want to call them.
Yeah.
So now they meet and kill 55-year-old Henry Harkin, March 19th, 1863. Okay, poor dude was just finishing chinking the sides of his cabin, minding his own business. Like the story even said, like wiping sweat off his brow when they're
Henry.
coming. When they're coming down from the gulch, and they see him, and I mean, poor guy, like really tortured him, and also brace yourself, shot and killed his horse and dog.
No.
Yes.
No.
Leave the animals
don't-
alone.
Yeah, have we learned nothing?
Yes.
Leave the animals alone.
So they did that. They burned down his barn. They tortured him. All the things. Eventually, begs for his life, but they kill him by shooting him in the head, shooting him in the heart, and split his head with an axe, and left the blade hinged in his forehead.
Right, that makes sense.
You know, tools are hard to come by, though. Wouldn't you be like,
But I would think that you probably couldn't get the axe out.
oh, you're right.
You know, like when you chop down a piece of wood.
And you can't get the axe out of the tree. Yeah. Okay.
Well, they stole all of his money, and then they head back to their hideout,
Of course
right?
they do.
But now our dude, Henry, is the phantom of this area. So that's where this like legend begins here.
Does he ride his horse from his doggy?
The dog and the horse do come back in the story. I am not even lying to you. When I read that, I was like, you can do whatever you want. You're still with your horse and your dog. It's totally fine.
All
Because
right, tell us more.
me too. You know, well, there's been multiple sightings of Harkins, which is so weird to say because I work with someone. Shout out. Brett Harkins, you know, that I work with. And I'm like, this is who I'm picturing right now as this.
Okay, I'm picturing my fiance for Henry.
As soon as Henry
So.
came up.
So I'll just say Harkins. So he haunts the gulch now. And witnesses say they see this transparent, you know, and they described it as a phantom, which I thought was an interesting
that.
term,
Me
right?
too.
Floating over the trees and the bushes. But the hatchet is still stuck in his head.
Oh, my.
So that's why
hence
he's
the
the
Axeman.
Axeman. Yeah. Now, the really cool thing is that the story spread. Pioneers began to call the area Phantoms Canyon, but the name was already taken. So they decided to refer to it as Dead Man's Canyon.
It makes sense that would be taken already.
Yeah.
So, but you love your true crime. And this is where it gets so good, in my opinion. 1867, there's this dude by the name of Oliver Kimball who decides in this area he's going to build a home for his future wife. She's not there. He's just there getting ready to build. But, I mean, months go by. She hasn't heard from him. So now she's concerned. She sends a mutual friend by the name of Captain Marshall Felch out to go look for him.
She sent Felch to the gulch?
Oh.
Well, Felch sees the ghost of Harkins on his horse with his dog companion riding on by next to him. And like there's an interaction of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Like Felch is just kind of like, what am I seeing
Exactly.
here? You know, kind of goes to go after him, kind of doesn't know what to do. Anywho, it winds up leading him. He brings people with him the next day to this area where he claims he saw this phantom, and guess what he finds?
The body of his friend.
The body of his friend.
No, he's a nice ghost.
Yes. So they wound up finding his hand was sticking up out of this area.
That's disgusting.
And it wound up exhuming him, that they found his body. But then it gets even wilder. Now I have to reference this book by Stephanie Waters, which was absolutely wonderful, Ghost of Colorado Springs and Pikes Peak. Mm-hmm. You think that this is going to... Oh, and then his wife passes away the same day that they find his body.
No.
Of pneumonia.
No.
And she's just her final words were something along the lines of that she's just so happy that she knows what happened to her Oliver. Yeah. At last, my darling Oliver has been found. I shall be joining him now. Oh. And she passes.
What a sweet baby angel.
So, yes, but it gets even wilder that he told the men that he was with how he had found Oliver buried under some rocks with a knife that was still plunged into his body. So there was foul play involved. The miners that he was with pulled the murder weapon from the satchel. The 8-inch steel blade flashed in the firelight as he read the initials engraved on the blade, DG. The next morning, David Griffin was found dead. His suicide note claimed that he bit the bullet because of guilt, and then he confessed to murdering Oliver Kimball. So, because of Henry Harkin, they helped solve this crime.
That's wild.
I like when it's a nice little neat bow. You know, everything is just solved. Everybody's dead, but hey, we know why.
And also the ghost,
why is an important question to answer, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about it for closure, right? You've already found out that the person's dead. Mm-hmm. The why and the how, just as important as knowing that it happened.
I'm just saying that Colorado seems like it's got some friendly, either it's one end of the spectrum or the other. You got some friendly creatures and ghosts, or you just have literally devil spawn, which makes sense because there's a lot of things in Colorado are named after the devil.
Yes. What was that road that I asked you if you were going to mention?
Oh, River. Well, I was going to save that one. Was I saving that one? I don't remember.
I think you are saving it for the next episode. But there's a name of a road. We'll talk about
River Road.
Well, there's also Devil's Den.
Devil's Den. Yes.
Riverdale Road.
Riverdale Road. So we'll talk about that in the next episode. But it's...
it was kind of for this, though, because it's apparently where the gates of hell are.
Yes, the gates of hell.
Yeah.
Also Devil's Den. Just saying.
I have found Devil's Thumb, Devil's Canyon, Devil's Causeway, Devil's Head, Devil's Backbone, Devil's Head Lookout, and the Devil's Stairway.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I also found Widow's Maker.
Well, I don't want to.
Well, that one doesn't
Don't
sound...
go there.
Oh, yes. Not in this episode.
Okay.
But I think my favorite, because, I just don't understand. I was just, why are so many places named after the devil? This is just, there's got to be a story. And the National Parks Traveler online, so nationalparkstraveler.org, has an article. Ask me what it's called.
The devil.
Devil in Colorado.
A hell of a place.
Oh, cutie pie.
Appropriate.
The Devil's Rolling National Park places names. So yeah, apparently I was just like, well, you sold me,
and I'm in.
Yeah. So I mean, it gives a little, I guess a little of the why. Just that there's this spiritual overrule in this area. I don't know. I just feel like that's asking for it.
Mm-hmm. It's also such a bloodied land. Let's just point it out for what it is. Mm-hmm. That was a bloodied land.
Maybe that's the time.
The atrocities that were taken up against the indigenous tribes there. It's, from what I was taught at a young age about, the Cherokee tribe, that they're going to leave their mark any way they can. And you also kind of don't get to where your ancestors lie is where your ancestors lie, right? That's just kind of where it is.
And to support your point, there was an author quoted in this article that said the devil had a good deal to do with the making of the West, if we may believe the West place names.
Yep, that's a great point. Who's the devil?
I like that.
Well, yeah, and especially since indigenous cultures didn't believe in a quote unquote devil figure, so that would make sense to name it after the white man's devil.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up with the Grand Valley Curse. Have you guys heard of this?
Nope.
No, I'm excited though.
Okay, so there is kind of like a folklore. If you live in Colorado, it's like you can try to leave Colorado. You can get ready for college. You can go away to college, complete your degree. You want to go somewhere else. But people in Colorado, they always end up back in Colorado.
Reminds me of New York.
For you, yes, absolutely. She's made the rounds, folks.
It's a boomerang.
And she's back. So people say they just don't understand what it is. It's like they leave and they come back.
It's like a gravitational pull of some
Yeah,
kind.
they can't. And so there's, this is from an article written on the Colorado Sun by Alex Rico. And he talks about the fact that the curse can vary depending on who you ask, but the most common response ties back to 1881 because during that time, the Ute Indians called the Grand Valley home, and they were forced to leave and live on reservations. And according to this story, as they left, they cursed the valley and cursed the white people who displaced them, so that whoever comes to settle it will never be able to leave it. And this is a story commonly told by college-bound high school students that there's no historical evidence that this curse, of course, existed, but it's told year after year to the next generation that no matter what you do, no matter how successful you are, you're coming back to Colorado. And there's a little bit of a quick fix, and the remedy is dirt. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you. So to break this curse, you have to ensure a voluntary return to the area. Voluntary. Locals believe that it's just one jar of dirt that you collect from 4 specific sites in this area, in Grand Valley. So you have to get a jar of dirt from Mount Garfield. That's the first stop. It's a mountain that serves as a landmark for travelers. Next, you have to get a jar of dirt from the confluence of Colorado and Gunnison rivers. That's got a beautiful picturesque view with 2 rivers merging. The third stop you've got to make is the Colorado National Monument and get a little dirt from there. And the 4th stop you have to make is Grand Mesa. So it's a little bit further away, but they say it'll encourage nostalgia and memories tied to that area. If you collect dirt from each of these sites, it symbols kind of like your farewell to the valley. So it'll allow you to leave without the burden of the curse. And whether obviously this works or not is of course uncertain, but people do this, and the author said that their own experience of living away from the valley brought him like looking forward to going back. Like he just has always had the pull to go back. And I think it's kind of crazy because so many of the little stories that I were looking up, people are like, yeah, but if you can leave Colorado, you're always going to end up back here. I wonder the Grand Valley Curse.
I feel like it definitely ties into the whole, everything comes from the earth, right? So like you respect the earth, you cherish the land, you grow things from the land, you do all this stuff that is revolving around the land. And so to have something taken from you, which they loved so much, kind
for
of
no reason.
Right.
Yeah.
To force them to then, okay, if you're taking what we love so dearly and forcing us to leave, then now you will have to stay and love this land forever.
I think it's poetic.
Like
Agreed.
it is. It's kind of beautiful. Like as much as it's called the curse, it's
As it should be.
yeah.
Absolutely. So that's,
I like that.
That's the curse.
I like how to wrap that. Was a good wrap.
Let's bring it back to the story and just say the land remembers.
the land does remember.
And I do just want to say that we, I'm sure you noticed listening to this episode a little bit of a different format. We heard you guys. We heard you say that you want more of us. So we're going to be giving you episodes every other week. You don't have to wait as long as you did last time. I'm just going to say this because we're wrapping up. Make sure you head over to our social media.
Yeah.
Follow us on TikTok. Follow
Instagram.
us on Instagram.
YouTube.
If you haven't
We
watched
are finally up
the
and
YouTube
running.
of us, the Krampus one, it is high comedy.
Yeah.
I highly recommend watching it. Especially the little Krampus cutout behind Dina's head the whole time is just fantastic.
And my gloves.
And your gloves.
The claws.
Yeah, and we're gonna be doing some more bonus episodes. If you are a paid subscriber for us on Apple Podcasts, you already got a bonus episode from us around the holidays. We're gonna be releasing a couple more of those going forward this season.
often, yeah.
A lot more often. We're going to have more content for you. And we want to hear your stories. Colorado people,
Yes.
Indigenous people, give us your stories. If you're comfortable sharing them, we want to hear them, and we will read them in
Yeah.
our bonus episodes.
We love the stories.
We do love the stories. I think we started this podcast because we just want to hear other people's stories.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%. And we will see you guys next time.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Bye.